Behind the Mirror of Music with Dannii Cohen.
Hello and welcome to Behind the Mirror of Music. My name is Dannii Cohen. This week's guest is David Serero. David Serero is a critically acclaimed and award-winning opera singer, actor, stage and film director, and producer. In New York, he starred off-Broadway in iconic roles such as Shylock, Cyrano, Othello, Barabas, Yiddish King Lear, Don Giovanni, Figaro, Romeo, Nabucco, and many more classic roles, as well as new works such as Napoleon by Stanley Kubrick and Queen Esther, Moses the Ten Commandments, Otto Frank and Anne Frank a musical, among others. In his native Paris, he starred as Don Quixote in Man of La Mancha, Happy Mac in Burger's Holiday by Duke Ellington, as well as You Are Not Alone, the Jackson musical, starring him and Jermaine Jackson. In this interview, we discuss his career and The Trial of Eichmann, his new play opening off-Broadway this month. I hope you will enjoy the show.
So how are you, my dear Danny?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm amazing. I had such a great time. It's been a year. Can you believe it? Our
Yes.
last interview. So, and I really enjoyed our interview. And thank you again for the opportunity to have me again on your wonderful show. And I always listen to all the great things you do. So thank you so much.
Thank you for joining. It's always great to speak to you.
Absolutely. You're very kind. Thank you.
So, what are you doing right now?
Well, right now, I'm talking to you.
Yes.
No, I'm rehearsing actually my new play, which is called The Trial of Eichmann. So it's based on the trial of Adolf Eichmann, who was a Nazi and who was responsible for the final solution of, exterminating Jews and other ethnicities. And then after after the war, he escaped to Argentina in Buenos Aires. And there, the Mossad, the Israeli Secret Services, they found him there. And then they captured him and brought him to Jerusalem in 1961 for a trial. And this trial was something really, really new at the time and a big thing, which was, you know, heard all across, of course, Israel, but worldwide. It was on all radios, and it was a very, very long trial, and it was a trial that was game changer a little bit for also the Holocaust survivor, because it was the first time that the Holocaust survivors were able to express themselves, but also it drew worldwide attention on what was the Shoah, what was the Holocaust. So this trial is very, very theatrical in a way. And it was very interesting for me to bring it as a play. And I'm telling you, we started the rehearsals and it's like I have goosebumps almost every minute. I have a wonderful cast and so excited to premiere it in New York. And I hope I will be able to bring it to other great venture, you know.
Yes, I hope so too. Do you feel that this telling this story at this moment in time where anti-Semitism is rising and it looks like we are having these times again, do you feel it's more important now than ever to bring this story?
Absolutely, Danny. I believe really that history is repeating itself. When there is a phrase that my character, Gideon Hausner, who is the attorney general who is leading the prosecution against Adolf Eichmann, is that he says, I don't think we will encounter again this kind of criminals. And then we see that was in 1961 that imagine what happened since, and not even mentioning October 7th and other things that, yeah, history is sadly repeating itself, not just if you think about it with what's happening in Middle East, but also in the rest of the world. Still to this day, people are killed based on their religions, based on their nationalities, on their personal choices, of their ethnicities, of their religion, and that is really sad, because at the end of the day, what have we learned? How did we grow, from that? So this trial really is going really to examine what evil is, and how do we heal as a nation also through that evil. And also it shows really how, in terms, if you have lawyers, they would be really, really enjoying the play, because it's almost a school case of how Eichmann tried, to escape when Gideon Hausner asked him, do you think someone who is exterminating Jews a criminal? And Eichmann replied, he is an unfortunate man. And he say, is he a criminal? Yes or no? He's a very unfortunate man. And how he resisted, and also the defense of Eichmann by Dr. Sabatius, also how he was able also to go around and to show really fair points in a way, and how the judges at that time of the Supreme Court of Israel also did not make it easy for Gideon Hausner, for him, and yet how Gideon Hausner was able to put out the words from the mouth of Eichmann was also really remarkable. So yes, history is repeating itself, sadly. And what the play taught me, to be honest, is, because I started to write the play in 2019, is really the after of any kind of war, like the after. Like I remember after October 7th, of course, I was saddened, I was horrified, but I was worrying of the future. I was worried about the after.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Like how the kids, they're gonna grow. How, because I knew that behind there would be a retaliation from the Israeli government, and I knew there would be casualties on the Palestinian side, and I'm thinking about these kids from both sides, like,
Yes.
what is the future for them? Like, how can they grow and loving each other? And we talk about that actually in the play, because Eichmann, he said, if the Allies are coming to the concentration camps, you must kill in priority all the Jewish children. He says, what's the point of killing a generation and leaving their kids alive? You take the risk of creating a generation of revengeful Jews who will find us no matter where we hide in the world. So it was a necessity of killing Jewish children. That's what Eichmann said. So then you're adapting that to today's world, and you're like, oh, okay, I understand. There would be revenge on both sides, which is what scared me the most, to be honest.
You had just starting the Anne Frank musical last year when October 7th happened. Was it difficult playing under these circumstances?
Yeah, I'm glad you're talking about that, Dannii. Yeah, no, definitely. I opened the show on October 9, so nearly 2 days after. And no, it was very tragic and very difficult. And I remember not some of the actors, all the actors were even worried about their security, about, the show. So I want to thank, the New York police, who they had New York police officers, NYPD, in front of the theater for every performances. So big shout out to all the police officer. Thank you so much. And no, it was tough, because you couldn't help yourself to make the connection,
Yes.
Jews being killed, and you would think that, oh, that was 70, 80 years ago, but no, it's still happening today. So that was really, really tough. And at some point in the musical Anne Frank, which is written by my friend Jean-Pierre Adida, we said never again, and look, it's still happening today. You will think, okay, it's past, it won't happen again, but it's still happening today. So yeah, the whole run was very difficult because of that. In the audience, you could feel, a very different atmosphere than when I played that same musical back in 2019. So people were, they didn't know if they could cheer up at the end or they should applaud, or feel it's some sort of funerals mood. So that's what I remember. But at the end, there was not a single dry eye in the audience because everybody was very emotional, because the story of Anne Frank on its own is very powerful, and I'm very glad of the work that was done. And yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful show. I filmed it, by the way, so we'll be able to showcase these. I think it's September, and we put, of course, a word to the victims of October 7th. That's for sure.
Who is in the cast of your Eichmann play?
So absolutely. So for the part of Eichmann, I hired actually a Jewish actor. So I really, frankly, didn't care he was Jewish or not. I thought he was great for the part, and he represented Eichmann by his voice. And of course, I knew that I would be able to direct him toward really the idea that I have of Eichmann, because I wanted to make each character almost as a Shakespearean role.
Oh,
I
yes.
wanted to make Eichmann also weak, also emotional, also broken, and not just pure evil. Otherwise it's not interesting. It's like a painting that is all blue or all red. You want to have different kind of red. You want to put a touch of white here, a touch of black here, to give some sort of relief, some sort of color, some sort of variations in the voice, in the play. Otherwise everything is the same. So I have Michael Takif playing Eichmann. I have one of my dearest friend, Ron Barba, who is a first-class comedian, but he has one of the greatest voices and speeches. I hired him, I think, for about 10 classical theater production. He's excellent. He's playing one of the judges, the judge Orlando. I have Bruce Biggins, who is playing Dr. Servatius, and also he's playing David Ben-Gurion, so that he looks exactly like Ben-Gurion. So that's amazing. Yeah, I have for the witnesses, and also I have a narrator who is giving information to the audience. I have Orlando Shelley. I have also Jonathan Hirsch, who is playing some roles, and yeah, a phenomenal cast of actors who are very passionate about the subject, but also mature enough that, and having experience enough that in one phrase they can give so much data,
Yes.
so much information, because you cannot say everything. Things had to be transpired through the heaviness of the line that you're giving, so that's why I wanted to cast actor, who were mature enough and veteran enough to bring this to life. And I'm very glad with the rehearsal we started. I'm very, very, very happy, of it. And also this particular event, the Trial of Eichmann, was not played by actors. It was regular lawyer, regular criminal, regular judge. So you have to find the right balance between how it happened to keep it real, but also to make it theatrical, and I don't like the word too much, entertaining for the audience, but at least I would say captivating for the audience, because you need to hold the audience an hour and a half, and that there was so much turning point in the story and so much the discoveries. And I released the play as a book also, and I released also the full transcriptions, almost 1,000 pages of transcription of the whole trial, which lasted almost a year. So that's what I did in order to do the play. I transcribed everything and then find the best part and the most theatrical parts, of course.
It's been a lot of work to go through all that and find what you need.
I had COVID, so I had time, to in 2020, 2021, I was able to do so. I have also two wonderful assistants, Rose and Zofia, were working for me full time, who for a while now, and who also helped me in this work to make it nice. And yeah, but it's you're passionate by it. You see the goal, you see where you want to do, and I believe this play, I'm also now thinking to make it as an opera,
Oh, yes.
So yeah, because it's very operatic, and you cannot believe that it really, really happened. That's what's crazy about it. It really happened.
So everything in Jewish history is like that, it seems.
You're so right. You're so right. I did before I did Anne Frank in New York in 2022. I did the Ten Commandments, the musical, written by Pascal Obispo, who is very famous French composer. Lionel Florence, Patrice Guiraud, with original back then staging by Elie Chouraki and choreography by Kamel Wally. And I adapted it as a new version in New York in English language. And there also, you're thinking of Moses, you're thinking of Ramses, the duet together, you're thinking of the mom of Moses, you're thinking of all these duets, of all these great story, and this is like 5,000 years old, so not 50 years old, 5,000 years old, and you're thinking, wow, it's so Shakespearean. And same story, the way I approached Moses was as a Shakespearean actor, in a way. I put some Shakespeare type in it.
Is there anything more that you want the audience to know about your Eichmann play?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's really a great play and very interesting story, and I pays a tribute also to what was Israel at the time, that is still today, but at that time, of all these people coming from so many different regions of the world and with so much personal history to come together. And they could have murdered Eichmann, but they did a trial of him. The Mossad, at some point, they were even talking about, let's kill him and pretend he escaped, And then Ziharoni, who I also play, the Mossad agent who captured him, said, no, we're not murderers like him, And they brought him, they risk their lives, they risk everything, and to bring him to Israel and to try him and to understand. They brought even psychologists to understand what was behind this. Why did he do all that? How did he do it? So that hopefully history won't repeat itself, And in 2022, for the first time, I went to visit Auschwitz to pay a tribute there. And also, I was honored to sing some Jewish prayers there in the concentration camp. I cannot tell you how emotional it was for me. And I remember talking with this Polish guy, and I was like, the guide, I was like, how did that happen? How did we let this going on? And he said, David, today in Poland, we punished by law for many years in jail for the simplest little act of anti-Semitism, of racism, of homophobia, of anything. You get 5-10 years in jail, and because he told me, because we know that a small insult, a small spit on someone, it's the first step that leads to Auschwitz. And don't tell me that we exaggerate, because it did happen. it started like that. It started by painting Jew on the stores of Jewish merchants. It started by that, and then it ended up with something like Auschwitz. So that's also somehow we learning the lessons, even though history is repeating itself, but we at least learning some lessons somewhere. Yeah.
Where will it be shown?
The play?
Yes, where will the
Yeah, it would be, it's opening on July 21st, and it's going to be played at a place I know really well called the Center for Jewish History in New York, which is perfect because it's part of the Jewish history, and it's a beautiful museum, and I played there a lot of wonderful productions, and I'm so glad to be back there with the American Sephardi Federation. Yeah, it's going to be played there. It's a limited engagement, so I hope everybody will come, and I hope maybe after the play will travel, we'll film it. So I hope, you know, the people watch the video later on, but it's mostly happening on the stage, because it's on the stage that you can really feel, you know, somehow, you know, the emotions that were happening inside of that courtroom.
When did you start falling in love with music and theater?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I started in Paris, and then I moved to New York when I was 16 the first time, moved by myself, and then went back and forth between Paris and New York, few months in New York, few months in Paris, and then at the age of 19, I moved to New York, and, you know, the theater study, and started to put my first plays, my first shows, concerts with actors from the school I was in, rented theaters, working in restaurants to pay for all of that. And yeah, I discovered opera. People told me I have a voice for opera, so I did a lot of opera, then went to Russia in St. Petersburg, where I studied at the Mariinsky Theater. And from there, you know, followed a nice career in Europe, and also in the US, and mostly in opera. And then step by step, desire to produce and to create and innovate in the way I wanted to bring opera, and the way I wanted to bring shows. And right away, my signature, which is still applicable to this day, where I would take a material, I will rewrite it, I will adapt it, like taking a Shakespeare classic and make it Jewish, you know, or make it, you know, I don't know, or make a musical simply about it, or take a play and add music around it, like I did with The Merchant of Venice, where I did classic Jewish song of the era, you know, this kind of stuff. So it was my signature to take this classic, adapt it to make it younger, fresher, but also to do the role in it, and also to direct and produce it, you know, and taking care of the whole aspect. You know, I was like a one-man company and doing it all, and started from playing in basements to even stadium, you know, and that worked pretty well. And then started for the last 10 years to be a little bit more involved in the US and the rest of the world. And now, for example, in Morocco, I have created the first national opera company in partnership with the Moroccan government. So that's a big achievement, and it's the first time that a civilian creates a national opera company. So that meant a lot for me, and you know, just following the destiny, the path of bringing now, you know, French musicals to the US, but also bringing American musicals to France, and writing now my own plays, which are opening soon, publishing. And for the last, I would say, 4 years, I started to direct and produce my own movies. So I was acting as an actor in movies before, but now I started to direct them. I did one about a fashion designer named Eli Tahari, which was a big success. And from that movie, I got 12 more movies. So it became, and what I learned as directing movies, I applied it when I direct musicals. So the visual aspect changed, the way the actors are acting, also on the close-ups, not just from the point of view from the last seat of the theater, but that also definitely changed my way of bringing things. But I always go back to my love. And I want to tell you, my dear Dannii, that the first musical I saw in my life was The Phantom of the Opera. And I know you're the big specialist, and one of the first Broadway songs I learned, as a matter of fact, was Music of the Night. So I started with the easiest thing, and I think I'm the only one who sang The Phantom of the Opera at the Paris Opera, the Garnier Opera. And there was a bank who did a big gala. They privatized the whole thing, and they hired me to play the Phantom in it. So it was. I know you're a specialist, a big fan of the Phantom, so I wanted to squeeze you that info.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
One of your biggest roles in France was Don Quixote in Man of La Mancha.
Yeah.
Would you tell about how you performed the role and everything?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I played the role 3 times. Yeah, Don Quixote from Man of La Mancha was really a dream for me, because it's one of these lead roles for baritone, because a lot of them are for tenors, or you're playing the bad guy. So this one is really heroic, and it was really one of my favorite roles. First time I played it was 12 years ago, I think, and it was in Paris, and I produced it, not directed, but produced it. And I had the idea of putting it together in a new version, and it was really extraordinary. One of the most beautiful, thing I've done. And this character brought me so much, and I learned every time I play a different role. I play, over 50 lead theatrical roles, such as, whether it's Shakespeare, musicals, etc. And I always took from the role for me in my personal life. Of course, you put a little bit of yourself in the role, but I wanted to take from the role. And that role taught me so much about not being afraid of saying your vision of the world and believing in the good of people. And it might sound, romantic like this, but it really is something when you apply it every day. And that was one of my favorite role. And I had a phenomenal cast with a big star, Jean Manson, who is American originally, and she moved to France, I think 40 years ago, if not more. And she's a big star. She sold, I don't know, 40 million albums in France and rest of the world. And she played Aldonza, which she played 30 years before that, when she just got in France. So it was something really extraordinary. Man of La Mancha is one of the most beautiful, memorable musical, and I thank the authors who gave me the rights to do it. So special thought for them.
You also did a production of Cyrano. Was it one of your own?
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, it was Cyrano. I played it in Paris a few times in French, is part of the French patrimoine, we say it's part of the really French history. It's that playing. It's French in all the way, And yeah, and in America, I wanted to bring it, but I never found really a good translation, a good adaptation, because I have in my head the French rhythm, the rhymes. There are rhymes which are part of the musicality of the play, and I thought that was important to have it reflected. So not only I did a new translation, but I did a new adaptation that came back really from the origin of the French book, and because a lot of translations I read were adaptation of adaptation of it, so we were losing really the sense, really didn't mean anything. So I had to go back, and not only I translated it, I adapted it, but I made it, I made it my way a little bit. I added jokes, I added comedy, a little bit more comedy, and I added music around it, which was for me, yeah, it was very, very beautiful, absolutely beautiful moment.
So that's what I would love to see if you could ever put it online or something, because I really love that story of Cyrano.
Oh yeah, no, there are clips on YouTube, and they are there is the video released on VOD or something like that. Yeah, no, there are a few stuff,
I will
but
look at
it
that.
is true. Yeah, the only thing I regret is I didn't film it with 5 cameras, or but I will bring it back to New York again. I think in 2025 there might be a production in the fall of Cyrano, and also The Merchant of Venice. So I always go, with cycles. There is a cycle where I want to bring new work. Then I have a cycle where I want to bring works that I wrote, and then I have a cycle where I want to go back to classics. And in the meantime of all of that, I do movies, concert, traveling, and recording albums, etc. So these cycles help me to learn from one style to the other, and while I learn in Shakespeare, I add it in Cyrano. While I learn in Cyrano, I add it in Anne Frank. What I learn in Anne Frank, I add it in a new work. So it's always like that. Is one style feed the other, one adventure feed the other.
Next to what are some of your favorite productions to create or to play?
My favorite production.
Yes.
If I tell you that this is my next one, it's always like that,
Yes.
I am proud of every single production I've done. Of course, when you start, you don't know, you don't have the money, you don't have the experience, you're afraid to say to the technician, please put less light or more light at that moment, etc., etc. One thing that I'm not afraid anymore is really, really to search the best cast and to really work with the cast individually to make them grow, because I can assure you they're not the same on the first day of rehearsal than on the last, not just last day of rehearsal, but the last show. Because every show I film them, after each show I write notes that I give before the next show. So I'm mostly proud that I've been doing that for every single show for at least the last 13, 15 years almost. And the more it goes, the more I'm more into details, especially now we film a lot of the theater, which is good, because then your work, can travel. I have, a television in Pakistan, who broadcast one of my show. I would have never had that before. I would have never had the opportunity to have me bringing all my cast and all of that to travel to Pakistan to play. So the fact that it's just a file that can travel, I think this is wonderful, and we have to have that. My show played in Buenos Aires, in Argentina, in festivals, and I'm very, very happy of that. So because we film now, I would say I put more emphasis on really emotions that can be seen not just from the last seat, but also on the close-ups, because the camera can be on you. So I work a lot of that. So that's also what I'm proud of. But I will say my favorite roles is Don Quixote, is Cyrano, is Othello, is Shylock from The Merchant of Venice, and these are really roles, and Otto Frank, of course, and these are really, really roles that I can say I nailed them down. Like I really did something special on it that was not necessarily done before, and that's what I'm happy about. But of course, you know, I've done roles like Richard III. I don't think I changed the game by doing Richard III, you know, but I'm happy I did it. But definitely for, you know, whether it was Othello, whether it was Merchant of Venice or Cyrano or Otto Frank or Moses from the Ten Commandments or Queen Esther. I didn't play Queen Esther, of course. I played King Ahasuerus. All these roles, you know, they live in me every day. You know, you never. It's like an old friend who is always with you. You know, they're right around the corner. You know.
What are some of your favorite stage memories?
Oh, myself. I'm thinking about now, I don't know why, but I'm thinking about opening night of Anne Frank and the whole, you know, when you have the Bravo, you are backstage and then you come one by one and you bow and etc. And I will never forget, I was backstage. I was the last one to come because I'm Otto and there was Anne right after me. And and the surprise, not the surprise, but you know, the shock, you know, to arrive on stage and see every single member of the audience standing up and applauding and you know, most of them crying and all of that. That was really a beautiful memory. But I lived it when I did Moses from the Ten Commandments and so on before. But yeah, the Men of La Mancha also. But I would say every stage memory is exciting because you can, if you know how to learn from it and to celebrate it. Like when I'm on stage, I celebrate the fact that I am allowed to be on stage, to exist on stage, you know, whether I produce the show or not, this doesn't matter, you know. You can be the producer. If no one wants to see you on stage, then forget it, you know. So I celebrate, but I also learn from every time I'm on stage. I have a book right here, you see, where I write, you know, all my comments and ideas and stuff I have discovered. And I learn also from others, watching others, you know, like what they do as a success, but what they do also that is not successful. So I learn really everything. The stage it's really, really heavy experiences, really.
Is there anything we haven't discussed yet that you would love to talk about?
Well, to talk about you, my dear Dannii, you know. You're absolutely wonderful in what you do and keeping, you know, the Broadway musical theater alive on the social media and with your wonderful podcast and interview. And that is something I really, really admire. And it's fans like yourself who really make me say all the time, okay, I have to be amazing. I have to be good. I have to be great. I have to be greater than others, you know. So I really, really value this interview and being with you. And
Thank you so much.
thank you so much, my dear Dannii. God bless you, my dear. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you so much. You take care, sweetheart. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Take care,
Bye.
dear. Bye.
Behind the Mirror of Music with Dannii Cohen.